In 2021, YouTuber Matt Fields took on a challenge most people wouldn't even consider. A friend of his told him about a strange, unsettling experience deep inside an isolated cave in the middle of Australia, and dared Matt to spend the night there alone. Now, Matt's channel isn't like most outdoor adventure channels. His videos push the limits. He often disappears into the wilderness for days, surviving only on what he can hunt or catch. This cave trip was no different. In fact, he didn't even bring water with him, hoping instead that he'd find some inside the cave. After nearly 4 hours of hiking, he finally reached the spot. A man-made ladder led him down into the darkness. Once inside, he began crawling through narrow passageways, testing each opening to see where it might lead. That's when things started to get strange. He heard rocks shifting near the entrance. Then, the sound of something walking. At one point, he even admits he feels like he's being watched. By around 11 p.m., things escalated. As he sat down to eat his dinner, a can of baked beans, he noticed something deeply unsettling.
That is beautiful. Baked beans in a haunted cave. Oh my God. That was the sound. That is the sound. Did you hear that? Look at my arms. I got full goosebumps. It's the chains moving when I climb down the ladder. It's a big, heavy, thick chain. Wind can't move that. Holy.
A heavy chain inside the cave began to move on its own. It wasn't a windy night, and there was no logical reason for it to sway. The only explanation was that something, or someone, was down there with him.
Chain moved just then. It is 100% now. I heard it before. I'm 100% certain it's the chain that I walked in, that you climbed down into this cave on. It's moving. Now, you can't move that chain with wind. It's way too heavy. There is no wind coming in here. There's no wind even for Holy. Oh my God. You must have heard that just then. Look at my arms, dude. Oh, this is fucked.
After the noises died down, Matt decided it was safer to stay near the entrance rather than venture deeper. But just when things seemed to settle, he began hearing something far more disturbing. Hissing noises. Not the kind you'd expect from an animal. These sounded like voices. Human voices. He searched the cave with his light, but nothing was there. The most dangerous possibility wasn't a wild animal, but another person. A squatter maybe, living deep in the cave. But who would choose to live in complete darkness, so far away from the outside world? By sunrise, Matt made it out safely. He never returned to that cave again. In April of 2019, a YouTuber named Jason uploaded a video to his channel Appy Mountain Trekkers. His content is all about the outdoors. Hiking, camping, and surviving in the wilderness. But on this particular solo trip, Jason captured something he likely never realized. The start of his adventure seemed normal. He filmed himself hiking up the mountain, setting up his tent, and preparing a fire as the sun dipped below the horizon. To pass the time, he even tried a bit of spoon carving. That's when he heard it. A strange sound echoing from the top of the mountain. He brushed it off, assuming it was just a bird, and carried on with his evening. By around 9 p.m., Jason turned off his camera to go to sleep. But less than an hour later, he was jolted awake. This time, the sound wasn't so easy to dismiss. He described it as a deep, guttural animal call, something he had never heard before.
I'm still rattled. I've never heard anything like that in my life. It sounded like a mix between almost like a pig, some kind of, I hate to even say it, but a pig, an ape, and the calls almost sounded like how the velociraptors communicate with each other on Jurassic Park. I've never heard anything like
It seemed distant, but unsettling enough to keep him on edge. Still shaken, he eventually drifted back to sleep. But at around 1 a.m., Jason woke again, this time to the distinct sound of something circling his tent.
Whatever it is, it's close. Hear that? Whatever it is, it sounded like there was 2 or 3 of them, and it started on the other side of my camp, went around my perimeter.
He grabbed his flashlight and scanned the darkness. If you look closely at the footage, in the bottom left corner of the screen, you can see them. 2 glowing reflections staring back. Eyes. At first glance, they could belong to almost any animal. But the bright, fiery white reflection makes it far more likely he was being watched by wolves or coyotes. Dogs' eyes can give off a similar reflection. But in the middle of the mountains at 1 in the morning, that explanation doesn't make much sense. While wolf and coyote attacks on humans are rare, they do happen, especially if the animals feel threatened, or if they're protecting pups. If that was the case here, Jason was in serious danger. But chillingly, he doesn't seem to notice the eyes at all. He eventually went back into his tent, and somehow managed to sleep through the night. The next morning, he posted another update, calm and unaware. He never mentioned the eyes his camera had captured, which likely means he never even knew they were there. Gary and Amica are a father-daughter duo from Scotland. Their channel usually documents wholesome travels across Europe in their camper van. But in March of 2023, during a stop at Tentsmoor Forest in North Fife, their adventure took a much darker turn. As they walked through the woods, Amica mentioned she could hear voices nearby. Curious, the two decided to investigate. That's when they stumbled onto something they weren't expecting.
We just stopped and had a look in these woods. Look at how scary that is. Put the torch on. Here's even one on the ladders.
Oh, there's someone lying on the ground.
Falling over. Look at the one on the ladders going up the tree.
Oh, yeah, that's creepy.
What about the washing line over there to the left? Yeah, there. Keep it there. That is weird, isn't it?
There's one over there that isn't actually a person. There's a doggy.
Hidden in the forest was a small cabin, and surrounding it, dozens of mannequins, dressed in strange costumes. Scattered among them were bizarre and unsettling paintings. Nailed to the outside of the structure, other explorers had found the site before, with some reports tracing the setup back to around 2021. But no one seems to know why it was created, or who maintains it. All that's certain is that someone went to great lengths to make the display as unnerving as possible. As Gary and Amica decided it was time to leave, the situation grew even more disturbing. A car appeared on the narrow path ahead of them, slowly making its way toward the forest. Gary admits he began to panic. In the middle of nowhere, surrounded by eerie mannequins, the last thing they wanted was to cross paths with whoever might be behind them. Thankfully, they made it back to their camper van without incident, but the identity of the person or people behind the mannequin forest remains a mystery. In 2018, a YouTuber named John uploaded a video to his channel Lost Lakes, where he documents his backcountry camping adventures across Canada. This particular video was filmed around 3:30 a.m., deep in the wilderness west of Chapeau, Ontario, a place so remote that there's no cell signal for miles.
Well, I am living every solo camper's nightmare right now. There appears to be an animal of some kind pacing around my tent. It's the middle of the night. And then around 3:30, I started to hear this pacing sound. And 45 minutes later, it's still pacing around out there.
John had set up camp in what's known as the black bear capital of the world. Out here, encounters with wildlife aren't just possible. They're expected. And in the middle of the night, something began circling his tent. At first, the crunching of footsteps could have been anything. Maybe a curious bear or a moose wandering too close. But the longer it went on, the stranger it sounded. The pacing, the rhythm. It didn't quite match the movement of any animal he could recognize. To keep his nerves under control, John turned the camera toward his gear, showing viewers the few things he had for protection: a hatchet, bear spray, and an air horn. It was a subtle reminder of how vulnerable you are when you're alone in the dark, with nothing but thin fabric separating you from the unknown. At one point, John mentions that his car was parked just outside the tent. But as he reached for his keys, he realized he couldn't find them. He probably left them in the vehicle. Meaning, if something did attack, there would be no quick escape. Eventually, the sounds faded, and John somehow managed to fall back asleep. By morning, whatever had been outside was gone, leaving only silence and footprints in the dirt. He never found out what was walking around his tent that night. Love Sundays is a YouTube channel run by a man named Sean, who films his solo camping adventures across the UK. His videos are usually calm and relaxing: a man, his van, and the quiet countryside. But in one video from September 2022, things didn't go quite as planned. That night, Sean decided to camp off the side of a narrow road in Cornwall. It wasn't technically allowed, but he figured if he kept quiet and out of sight, no one would notice. Before sunset, he climbed into his van, cooked dinner, and tried to make as little noise as possible. By around 9 p.m., he turned off the lights and went to sleep. Everything was peaceful until around 2 a.m. In the middle of the night, Sean woke to the faint sound of movement outside. Then, he heard it. The sound of someone trying his van door handle.
I just heard something outside. Okay, I think they've gone. They literally tried to get in the van. It wasn't just a knocking, they were trying the handle.
Now, it's not uncommon for wild campers to be asked to move during the night, especially if they've parked somewhere they shouldn't. But in those cases, it's usually an officer or ranger. They knock, identify themselves, and tell you to leave. This wasn't that. Whoever was outside didn't say a word. They didn't knock. They just went straight for the door. For a few seconds, the handle rattled back and forth. And then, silence. Whoever it was, they eventually walked away, leaving Sean frozen inside his van, listening, waiting. By morning, there was no sign of anyone. No footprints. No vehicles. Just the eerie realization that someone had been out there, in the dark, trying to get in. Sean posted the footage to his channel soon after. He never learned who it was, or what their intentions might have been that night.